Greetings, everyone. Nathan Nerdarchy here from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with some nerds.
Nerdarchy is Ted.
Eric is Dave.
And today we continue our series on why D&D needs Dark Sun. We'll be talking about post-apocalyptic worlds.
Jump down the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
So you want post-apocalyptic? We got post-apocalyptic. We got it in the form of Dark Sun.
We got Athos.
So in the early days of gaming and RPGs, I want to say you pretty much had two post-apocalyptic worlds you could play in. One of them being Gamma World, which is very sci-fi-ish. The other one being Dark Sun, which is fantasy-based.
Right.
So let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about what makes Dark Sun an apocalyptic world to actually game in.
All right, well, should we first look at what does it mean to be post-apocalyptic?
That's a good place to start.
Well, post-apocalyptic means apocalypse has happened and you're living in the aftermath, basically. So back in the day, the sorcerer Jat did something to the sun, used its energy to do something with him and his champions, and that kind of screwed up. That was the beginning of the screw-up for the rest of the world.
So the yellow sun turned red, and it began to literally bake the world.
Yes, and then that combined with all the sorcery that destroyed vegetation. You can check out the Defiler video for more information on that. You get this desert world that's getting hotter and less water, less food, and just kind of less environment that would normally house a lot of people.
Basically, the apocalypse is like a world-ending event, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Dark Sun had several. It had the Cleansing War, which, basically annihilated certain races. They don't no longer exist. Had that war been successful, even more would not exist. We had the changing of the sun, making Dark Sun, or Athos, less hospitable than it already was. And then finally, we have the use of Defiler magic, which is depleting the life force of the planet and natural resources. So we have these three events that are basically individually they're bad, but together they're almost a planet killer.
So the planet didn't die. The people have thrived, but they're living in a world where the bad guys are in charge. The bad guys rule these cities.
My friend, you have a really odd sense of thrive, but okay.
It's more like they're like
They
the corpse
exist.
is cooling on this
They've
world.
survived. But in doing so, they're living in a world where everything is harsh. The rules are harsh because the people in charge are harsh. The weather is harsh because the sun is screwed up. There's not as much food because, let's face it, the plants and the animals want to kill you because they want to survive just as much as you do.
Yeah, the hallmark of a good post-apocalyptic setting is the survivability factor, right? That it's hard to survive in, and that's essentially what Athos has. In Athos, there's a couple pockets of civilization where people have kind of banded together, and many of them under the iron-fisted rule of a sorcerer king, which, like you said, they're the bad guys. They won, so the bad guys are kind of in charge, and everyone else is trying just to eke out an existence.
And sometimes a meager existence as a gladiator, or a slave doing labor, or just a guy who's free, but he's just barely getting food.
So what becomes the appeal to have all of this downside and play an RPG in it?
Well, it's like this ultimate struggle where everything is out to get you and the stakes are just set against you. It's an underdog story, right? You want to be the underdog, you want to win, and you want to, and winning in this context might just mean surviving.
I made it through this session.
Which some characters don't, and we talked about the usefulness of the character tree in another video for Dark Sun, that you make several because the underdog doesn't always win. In a post-apocalyptic world, the underdog most of the time doesn't win.
Well, that's just it. You're playing a survivalist game, and that is at the rub of it. And like you said, the plants want to kill you, the animals want to kill you, the bad guys want to kill you, and even the guy that just wants to be able to survive to see another day, he might want to kill you for your water skin.
Yeah, when you're trying to grab some water just to make it, or you don't hunter. It's not hunter and gatherers anymore. It's hunters and hunters because the plants are trying to kill you. It's actually probably more dangerous to try and grab a cactus in Dark Sun than it is to hunt some wild animal.
The other thing too is because of the scarcity in this setting, things that are valuable in other fantasy settings don't have as much meaning here. Like gold and silver, you cannot eat or drink that. In Athos, you're going to be more concerned with water. Water is the primary resource that you're going to be looking for, especially if you're not in a city.
So when you're traveling, you always want to make sure that you have resources. Now, in the current edition of D&D, it's like, oh, I'm going to play an Outlander because I'll always be able to gather resources as I go about my travels. Well, if you're going to put that kind of character here, he's not going to know what to do. There's not the plentiful resources that a standard fantasy setting has. So, like, there's going to be changes that would have to be made because you just don't have ready access to that.
Right. It might be more along the lines of you can sustain yourself, but your 5 or 6 buddies, you're probably going to have to watch them starve and die of dehydration because this setting is just so brutal. So, what kind of adventures have you played in Dark Sun? Do you foresee playing in Dark Sun or in a post-apocalyptic setting?
Well, I could see there's be some simple adventures and just simply, you go from maybe you escape as a slave or maybe you're done being a gladiator and you're like, all right, I want to leave this city because I know how crummy this city state is. So I'm going to try and make my fortune or just survive someplace else where I'm not a wanted criminal or I'm not an ex-gladiator or something like that. So you're going to just traveling from one city state to another can be a challenge in a survival type game like this.
Yeah, well, like you said, actually being a gladiator or a slave could actually be one and the same, and the players could actually be a group of escaped slaves, and they want a new start, they want a fresh life, and they're not going to get it as long as they're in the same place. The people they're going to be hounded, they're going to be hunted, and people are going to want to put them back in shackles.
And an easy adventure that can be done in a post-apocalyptic world is a caravan guard. It might not sound like a thrilling tale, but when the world is literally out to kill, you need to make sure that you have some supplies for everything that you're going to be doing. If you're traveling from one city to the next, are you sure you're going to have enough stuff or do you have enough carrying capacity to carry all your food and water across the sands? Putting it in some kind of pack or a pack mule makes it so much easier so that if you're traveling in groups, everyone has that better chance to survive, as well as you've got the stuff there without actually you having to carry it, sweating off all the water that you wouldn't have to drink.
Although that could be an interesting way to go in adventures, but even more so would be, what if you started your campaign off with that's what everyone was. They were caravan guards. They wake up and the caravan has been sacked and everything is gone.
Yeah, either some people left in the middle of the night or something occurred that.
Well, like I'm thinking like there's an attack, they get knocked unconscious, and now the survivors are the players, right? And they're part of the caravan. But all the stuff you would have been keeping with you in that caravan is gone, and with it, your chances of survival,
including your pay.
Wah, wah, wah.
Because, you don't have to pay dead guys, so the people that don't make the whole caravan journey, they don't get paid.
That is true. But that's going to be the least of your concerns
Yes.
because you're going to run out of water first.
Yes,
absolutely.
Water and food, definitely. So they could go, from there you could say, well, we can't make it to either city-state the way we are, so we're going to have to figure out something. So they might be looking for caves, they might be looking for underground access to get out of the sun. So you have all these different things of finding shelter, and finding shelter from the player's perspective can be a good way to, as a DM, to lead them towards certain adventures that are going to happen within the area in between the city-states.
Also, even without leaving the city-state, there is also the idea that they're all ruled by the Sorcerer Kings, which are these deific beings of supreme power. And we already said they're not good guys; they're the bad guys, right? But maybe your characters, your players, are good guys, and they're trying to do, small things to help the common person. Maybe they would like to see one of these Sorcerer Kings overthrown. Probably isn't going to be happening just because they're so powerful. But that doesn't mean they can't at least like strike out at them and try and be like rebels or some kind of resistance. Maybe even like terrorist groups in the city, and maybe that's what the adventures are all about. you're basically sabotaging the Sorcerer Kings and their armies and their workings, or maybe you kind of associate the nobles with the Sorcerer King, so you kind of lash out at them because that's a safer target. So you could be fugitives within the city, but you don't want to escape. You don't want to get out because you want to keep fighting the good fight.
So those are some great ways that you could run a post-apocalyptic game. Let us know in the comments below what you think about Dark Sun, as well as the post-apocalyptic setting. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can check us out over on Facebook.
You can hang out at nerdarchy.com.
So until next time,
Stay
stay
nerdy.
nerdy.